Welcome to Couch Talk with Cherie. I'm your hostess, Cherie Edwards, licensed professional counselor here at Work in Progress Counseling. At Work in Progress Counseling, we are a team of therapists dedicated to providing direction, guidance, and support in a safe environment for those who desire emotional, relational, and spiritual healing. Work in Progress currently has 3 locations. In Birmingham, Alabama, we are located at 266 Gadsden Highway, Suite 102. That's between Roebuck and Trussville. In Cullman, Alabama, we are at 409 2nd Avenue Southwest, Suite 101. And in the Tuscaloosa area, we are at 650 Energy Center Boulevard, Suite 1702. For more information about Work in Progress, you can call 205-994-4563, or you can find us on the web at www.workinprogresscounseling.com. I decided to do Couch Talk to open up communication about mental health and to decrease the shame and stigma associated with all things related to mental health. Today's Couch Talk topic is what keeps sexual trauma hidden. Please follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see previous videos. Feel free to ask questions or leave comments below, and also like and share this video if you find value in the information. So, I didn't watch the Lifetime series that everybody's been talking about. And if you want to know about why I didn't watch it, go back and watch my video on vicarious trauma. But since everybody, whether they watched it or not, is talking about the story, I figured I'd add my 22 cents to the pot. Now, when I worked as a therapist at an inpatient rehab, substance abuse rehab, I often found myself dealing with the issue of denial. We would do a 2-hour group therapy session where the entire time all we talked about was denial. Now, I know you're probably thinking, she said she was going to talk about sexual trauma. But as the preachers that always say, bear with me, I'm going somewhere with this. Now, at the start of my group, I would read this paragraph where it talked about what denial is and how denial is not just for alcoholics and addicts. Denial is actually a very normal defense mechanism that all of us employ, knowingly or unknowingly, throughout our lives. An example of that would be, your doctor said you need to lose 40 pounds, but you say, but I'm just big bone and I'm thick and I like a little weight on me. That's a perfect example of denial. But denial can keep us trapped and it can keep us stuck. So when denial is used, that keeps us from taking responsibility for our actions, and it also keeps us from holding others responsible for theirs. We avoid feeling uncomfortable emotions through using denial, and we often avoid facing realities that need to be dealt with when we use denial. Now, like I said, I didn't watch the series, but I've been watching the comments on social media, and people have asked over and over and over again, why don't they get it? Why don't they get it? Let's put a paper clip right there for just a second. Now, I said last week when I did my video that I was going to talk this week about surviving sexual trauma, but as I sat down and started writing, I realized, wow, this is a lot. Then, consequently enough, I got a phone call from a lady at the Birmingham Times asking to do an interview because she wanted to talk about sexual trauma and the Lifetime series that had just come on. And I did the interview, and that should come out sometime in February, but I really don't feel like I was able to do the topic justice because I only got a chance to talk about it for maybe about 20 minutes. So I realized that this might take more than one video. So back to my paperclip. I decided to talk a little bit today about why they just don't get it. Unfortunately, the reality is that sexual abuse and sexual assault often remain hidden because of manipulation and denial. Now, I remember growing up and hearing the phrase stranger danger, keep your kids safe, warn them of stranger danger. So this is a myth that has been perpetuated for as long as I can remember, that rapists, child molesters, and abusers look evil and that they're strangers. This misconception helps to explain why it is so hard for people to incorporate into their thought process that someone who played a well-loved dad in their favorite sitcom, or the artist who sang the soundtrack to my clubbing days, could possibly have committed the crimes for which they've been accused. However, the reality is most people who commit sexual violence, domestic abuse, or plain old psychological manipulation, they're just regular folks. And they look like you or me. They can be attractive, charming, generous, successful. They can even on the surface be kind and caring. You can't tell what an abuser, you can't tell someone is an abuser just by looking at them. Then when we watch the news or listen to the radio or scroll down our timeline, we see and hear all types of images that remind us that the world is a dangerous place. And we all want to feel safe in our little bubble. So that's when we have to find a reason as to why or how these events could have happened. We got to blame somebody. It's the parents' fault because they allowed those girls to go, or it's the girls' fault because they're trying to get fame and fortune, or well, if it's even true, why would they wait so long to tell it? Well, if you were going to be blamed for the most horrific events of your life, would you want to tell anybody what happened? Of course not. It's easier for us to blame someone for their own hurt or harm than it is to accept that this could happen to anybody, including me. It's so much easier to look for the fault rather than saying that these girls, for whatever reason, they were in the place that they were and this happened, and it happened to them, and the person who did it is to blame, and it could have happened to anybody. So another way to keep the focus off the perpetrator and his crimes is to focus on how the victim probably isn't really a victim. Some victims are blamed because they aren't innocent enough, or they don't appear innocent enough to deserve victim status. So if a person doesn't fight back, they couldn't possibly have been, it couldn't have been an assault because they didn't fight back. If they had fought back, then that would have let you know that it was actually against their will. When that's not true, when statistics show sometimes people find themselves frozen in fear and are unable to fight back. Well, they're dressed in a way that's perceived as inappropriate. Well, if she didn't dress that way, it wouldn't have happened. I don't care what you're wearing or not wearing. That doesn't give someone a right to your body. Being under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Well, if she was sober, that wouldn't have happened to her. If she wasn't high, that wouldn't have happened to her. Well, if you know anything about the law, that kind of takes away the ability to consent if you're inebriated. So that still makes it an assault. If the accused is someone that they know, a victim is even less likely to be believed. So one scholar noted that people only give a full pass to those fitting an ideal victim profile, which consists of the following 5 traits. The one hurt must be weak or vulnerable, involved in a respectable activity at the time of victimization, blameless in all aspects of the interaction, victimized by an obvious offender, and someone that they don't know. Only the people who meet this profile are most likely to be supported, fully supported in their trauma. Others are likely to be questioned or doubted. Lastly, abusers often tell their victims that they are to blame for their own victimization, that it's their fault. And then watching the news and social media and seeing how victims are treated when they report, this message is reiterated. All of this external blaming leads to self-blame. So the victims of abuse often find themselves saying, how could I have done things differently? How did I let this happen to me? It's my fault. If I had done this, this wouldn't have happened. And so the psychological effects of sexual trauma are deeply scarring and can last long after the physical part has healed. So with all of this denial leading to the the perpetuated problem of people not reporting, people taking a long time to report, people being afraid to report. What do? Well, I'm glad you asked. We as a community have to work harder to shift the culture around sexual assault towards accountability and awareness. There are some people who have resisted taking victims' claims seriously. They say, "Oh well, anybody can just say that someone did something to them, or they can blame them for something that they didn't do." When in actuality, only about 6 to 8% of accusations are false. False accusations are actually pretty rare. Going out of your way to report a sexual assault is so psychologically damaging for most victims that most people would not do that and be a false report. The reality is the majority of incidents aren't even reported, and most offenders never are accused or held responsible. Even in the most serious cases, estimates suggest that only about 1 in 200 rapes result in conviction or incarceration. So we need to take all abuse reports seriously. We need to validate the emotions of victims and offer support rather than asking questions challenging the validity of the report. Rather than telling them how they need to handle it, you need to call the police, you need to make a report, you need to go to the hospital. Rather than giving them directives, we need to listen and show concern and talk with them through the various options of how to handle their particular instance of abuse, suggesting therapy and abuse hotlines, and being supportive. The trauma of sexual assault is complex and it's difficult, but it shouldn't have to remain hidden. If we all work together to support victims, we can raise awareness and abuse can be prevented and healing can happen. Now, I'm not really sure where I'm going with this next week, but we're going to talk more about this subject. Leave some comments below. If you have some questions, inbox me. And starting the 1st of next month, I'd like to be doing a group therapy session for sexual assault survivors. If you're interested, inbox me or call us here at 205-994-4563. Thank you for watching. Like and share this video. See you next week on Couch Talk.